Today we're going to begin to think about genetics. So let's write some notes about genetics. So the first thing we want to think about is, well, what is genetics to begin with? So genetics is the study of traits passing from parent to offspring. So I'm going to write that here. The study of traits passing from parent to offspring. So an offspring is just the child of an organism. We say child or young for animals, but we're also talking about, when you're talking about plants and other organisms, then offspring is kind of a more scientific way to think about that. This is also the study of heredity. So the way that things are inherited, or also inheritance. So things that are passing, the study of how things pass from parent to offspring. So that's kind of the overview of that. The central piece to genetics, which we understand now, is DNA. DNA. So we understand that the substance of DNA is what allows traits to pass from parent to offspring. So DNA stands for, you may have heard of DNA, but you might not know what it stands for. It's deoxyribose, or ribo, I should say, ribonucleic acid. Nucleic acid. And so that's your DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. That's what DNA stands for. Now, we know from our study of cells that the DNA is located in the nucleus of a cell. And it's not just in a cell, nucleus of a cell, but it is actually in every cell. Every cell has a full set of DNA. Now there's some exceptions to this, but you don't need to worry about that right now. But generally speaking, a whole set of DNA is in every cell. So we have a DNA. So the DNA is in what we call a double helix structure. So the shape of it is in a double helix. Now what does that mean? Now this is the shape that you think of when you see DNA. You see pictures of it. It looks something like this, right? You see this symbol. I think we even have it for one of our teens classes. So it looks something like this. And that's of course the flat version, but it is like a twisted. It's like a twisted ladder. So if you think about the sides of a ladder like this with rungs across of it, and then you took the whole thing and twisted it, that's going to be what your DNA double helix looks like. So it has several parts, this structure. It's made of, we can say it's made of a sugar and phosphate backbone. So the backbone, so like the sides right here, right, are going to be sugar and phosphate backbone. And then the part in the middle are the bases. So these are our base pairs. They would be, so the backbone would be here, sugar and phosphate backbone would be like this part, right? And then the bases would be, I'll pick a different color for that. Maybe this pink color or here. These are going to be like the bases. And we'll draw another picture of this as well. So the bases, there are 4 bases that make up DNA. They always pair together. So they are adenine, which always pairs with thymine. And there's cytosine, which always pairs with guanine. So A, T, C, and G. So these are a pair, and these are a pair. And they are often referred to by their letters here, A, T, C, and G. You can remember there are some different mnemonics to help you remember. One is, let's see, apples on trees, A and T. So we could draw a little tree here with a little red apple on it. For an apple on a tree, A. So we could write apple and tree, A and T. And for C and G, we could think of a car and a garage. So I'm going to draw it from the back. Here's the little wheels of my car. And I'm going to draw. So, and that can be car and garage. That can help you remember that A goes with T and C goes with G. I always also think about them as A and T being more angular and straight, and C and G being the more curvy ones. So however you can remember that works. So let's look a little bit more closely at the structure then of that double helix. So we've got, like I said, we have the sugar and phosphate backbone. So I'm going to draw, so sugars are often in little rings, carbon rings. Actually, they should have 6 sides, but I'm going to just draw them here. They would be like little hexagons. And then those would be the sugar. And then our phosphates, I'm going to just draw as little pieces in between like this. So this would be the sugar phosphate backbones. You can draw these yourself. It's kind of nice to take a minute to draw things so you can really imagine it for yourself. There's the sugar phosphate. So this is going to be the backbone of our ladder. And then in between, we have these base pairs. So we can imagine that they come off the sugars and they're going to connect to each other. So this would be like an A, and the connecting one would be a T, because remember they always go together. And we often represent them with kind of these shapes as if they're like puzzle pieces that fit together. So the C would go with G, and maybe this one is a G. It's like that. And it goes with a C over here. And these are going to be in different positions all along, but these are your base pairs. So the DNA is in sections. So we have the backbone, we've got the bases. When we look at kind of one full unit, it's basically one sugar, one phosphate, and one of the base pairs. We call that single unit a nucleotide. So you need to know that term. That's it's like a single unit. It's one base, one sugar, and one phosphate. One sugar and one phosphate. So remember, that's our sugar. This is our phosphate. I should have used a different color. That's okay. And then our base pairs are in here. These are our base pairs. Those are your bases. Now, these are held together with one another with hydrogen bonds, like right down the middle. So the base pairs connect to each other using hydrogen bonds. And those are where the base pairs meet. Now, as you're imagining, this is kind of a close-up of DNA. We also have these other terms that we use to talk about DNA. We hear the word chromosome, we hear genes, and so how do these words really relate together? So if you think about your, I'm going to just draw like sort of like this. So imagine this is our DNA. So all of it is DNA. So DNA is kind of the stuff that it's made of. This is our little thing, and we're going to kind of zoom out on it and say this is zoomed out, and then I'm going to draw it like this. So a section a gene, when we talk about genes, that's really just like a section. Now the section is actually can be, hundreds or thousands of base pairs long, but I'm just going to draw it as a little section here. But you can think of it as a section of DNA that codes for a specific protein, that codes for proteins which then give a specific trait. So it is a section of DNA that codes for a specific trait. I'm including that it codes for a protein for that specific trait, or a group of proteins, because that is actually what DNA does, and that's how traits are manifested in the body and in the organism, is through these proteins that are coded for by the gene. So a gene, remember then, is a section of DNA. So you can think of it like that. All of it is DNA. That's kind of the stuff it's made out of. It's like saying the chair is wood. The wood would be the DNA. It's what it's made of. And then the gene is just a section of it that codes for a particular protein. Now, this DNA is coiled and wrapped and compacted into these twisted up but organized units, which are called chromosomes. And these are what live in the nucleus. And when they're all organized, so it's basically a chromosome is DNA, and it's coiled and wrapped around these other proteins, and then it's compacted together so that it's kind of really organized and folded, so that it can be all into these chromosomes. And these are what we have in humans. Basically, we have 46 chromosomes in humans. Different animals have different numbers. We end up with 23 pair. So, 23 is half of 46. We basically have 2 copies of each of our chromosomes, one from mom, one from dad. And so the chromosomes are often depicted something like this. So you end up with kind of 2 matching chromosomes, and they're connected in the middle, but these would be matching ones that you got from your mom, one that you got from your dad, and we'll go further into traits and alleles on another day.